In his dream he said, "It raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it between the teeth of it." Daniel 7:5. What does this part of the prophecy mean? As we study history, we discover that the Second Empire was a dual dynasty, or a coalition government. The Medes and the Persians were united into one empire. However, before long, the Persians became the dominant power in the dynasty. One side of this coalition was more powerful than the other. God had predicted this shift in power years before it took place. Daniel said that the bear had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth, but the Bible does not identify their meaning. However, most Bible scholars believe the 3 ribs represented Lydia, Babylon, and Egypt, the 3 principal territories that were devoured by the Medo-Persian armies. The Persian Empire ruled for 2 centuries. But ferocious and strong as it may have been, God revealed to Daniel in the dream that another beast or kingdom would arise. "Lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it." Daniel 7:6. Just as a slow-moving bear proves no match for the agile leopard, so the Persian armies were unable to defend themselves against the swift advances of Alexander the Great. In Nebuchadnezzar's prophetic dream, the bronze belly and thighs of the image represented the Third World Empire of Greece, and so does the leopard in Daniel's dream. The 4 wings describe the great speed of Alexander's conquests. He defeated Darius III of Persia in the Battle of Arbela in 331 B.C., thus becoming in less than 12 years the ruler of the most extensive empire the world had ever known. The leopard's 4 heads represent the 4 divisions of Greece. 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, Daniel 8:22. The New International Version states it this way: 4 kingdoms will emerge from this nation, but will not have the same power. History tells us that the Grecian Empire did indeed divide into 4 parts. Alexander died of a raging fever at the age of 32, just 7 years after his great victory at Arbela. Even before he was buried, a bloody 22-year power struggle began, first among his relatives and later among his military leaders. Finally, 4 of Alexander's generals gained control of the empire. Now the leopard beast, or Greece, had 4 heads: Cassander, Lysimachus, Ptolemy, and Seleucus. Most people have trouble keeping one head going in the right direction. What do you suppose would happen if he had 4? Chaos. Each head trying to be number 1. That's exactly what happened to the Greek Empire. Alexander's 4 generals were greedy, ambitious men who wanted to obtain the throne. Each one whetted the sword against the other, and the empire went down in a tangle of strife. Alexander the Great, page 494. The unrest and strife continued among the 4 parts of the empire till finally, on June 22, 168 B.C., at the Battle of Pydna, perished the empire of Alexander the Great, 144 years after his death. History of Rome, Book 3, Chapter 10. But what about the 4th nondescript beast that Daniel said would rise to power after the Greek Empire? The angel told Daniel that this 4th kingdom would be different from the other kingdoms. The beast representing it was extremely powerful, and it had enormous iron teeth that destroyed its prey. Here is pictured a cruel, vicious power. A more fitting description of the rise of the Roman Empire could hardly be found. It was more ruthless and brutal than all the previous empires, sometimes annihilating whole nations. When it didn't destroy or subjugate a people, it used them as slaves or sold them into slavery. Daniel's monstrous beast had iron teeth, while the 4th kingdom in the metal image was represented by iron legs. Daniel was intrigued by this nondescript beast, and especially by its 10 horns. He said, "I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots." Daniel 7:8. The angel told Daniel that 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise. Daniel 7:24. No doubt Daniel's mind flashed back to the great metal image with the 10 toes, representing the 10 divisions of the Roman Empire, accomplished in A.D. 476 by the barbaric tribes of northern Europe. 7 of these kingdoms, or nations, are still in Europe today. But what interested Daniel most was the little horn that pushed itself up among the 10 horns, uprooting 3 horns in its struggle for supremacy. Daniel noticed that in this little horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things. Daniel 7:8. This little horn troubled Daniel. He wrote, "I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit, and the visions of my head troubled me." Daniel 7:15. Why did this description of the little horn cause Daniel such concern? Because the same horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time. Daniel 7:21-25. Daniel recognized that this prediction was no longer just about secular history, but that it had to do with God's people. For this little horn made war against the saints of God and actually prevailed against them for a period of time. Obviously, it was to be a hostile, persecuting power, a power or agency used by Satan to make war against God, his people, and his truth. Daniel said, "I was deeply troubled by my thoughts, and my face turned pale, and I kept the matter to myself." Daniel 7:28. All of this is but a background or introduction to the career of the little horn and the heavenly judgment. The identification of the little horn power and the part it was to play in the war against God and his people will be covered in another program. Here we will simply say that the fourth beast and its horns will exist until the end of time, when God will give the kingdom to his saints. In vision, as Daniel watched the powers on earth struggle to grasp political and religious dominance, his attention was suddenly shifted from earth to heaven. As I looked, thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was as white as snow. The hair of his head was white like wool. His throne was flaming with fire, and its wheels were all ablaze. Thousands upon thousands attended him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated, and the books were opened. Daniel 7:9 and 10.